It has been 2 weeks since NFL teams were shaken up at the trade deadline. Since then, some familiar faces have gotten acclimated to their new places. With that being said, it's time that we check in to see how the NFL's biggest deadline deals are shaping up for each team involved so far. I'm your host, Brady Welsh, joined by Connor Patterson and Gabriel Kovadlo. And for this segment of Penn State Sports Night, we will be going over the 5 biggest trades of the deadline, giving them a grade from A to F, and explaining our reasoning for it. The first trade we will be talking about is the Sauce Gardner trade from the Jets to the Colts in exchange for 2 first-round picks and Adonai Mitchell. Connor, we're going to start with you. What did you think of this trade, and what would you give each team a grade on?
So I'm going to start off with the Colts side, and I'm going to give the Colts a C. I'm just going to give them that middle grade because I do think Sauce is a good player. I'm just not sure he's playing at that elite level anymore. I think that the value the Jets got is A. I think that if you can get that value for someone who is maybe like their elite days are behind them, and I hate to say that because he is still young, but getting a young receiver and 2 first-round picks is kind of crazy to me for someone who I think is just good. I think rookie year Sauce was a very insane talent, and I think since that, he's just kind of been overhyped a little bit. I think maybe it's just a little bit of name value, but in my opinion, I don't think he's playing as good as sometimes people rate him to be. And for the Colts, the value you paid, that is elite value for just a good player, like I said. So I'm not really seeing this panning out for them in any way just because of how high the price they paid. I just don't think that even if he plays good again, I'm not sure if you can gain the value you gave up.
Yeah, so I'll agree with you on the Jets' perspective. I would say that the Jets, I would give them an A for that. They got 2 first-rounders, one for this upcoming draft, one for the following, and I think it's really, really good value in return. In addition to Adonai Mitchell, who is a young, I feel like up-and-coming receiver. He has made some mistakes, especially this year, some drops and some silly mistakes, but I feel like he is a young player, something for him to learn from. So I think the Jets an A for this one. For the Colts, on the other hand, I would disagree with you a little bit. I still think I would give the Colts like a B+ for this trade, and that's because Sauce Gardner is, ex-defensive rookie of the year. He was a 2-time All-Pro and a 2-time Pro Bowler. He does have that ceiling on any given year. I feel like, part of the decline that he had is because, he's a part of an organization, and that is in the Jets, that it hasn't been, succeeding whatsoever, these past few years. And I feel like him going to a true contender like the Colts have been this year will truly help him, thrive and get back to where he was at when he first came into the league.
I mean, I think it's a respectable move. I just think for the Colts, the value you gave up is that you're just hoping you can get him back to his ceiling, to that elite talent, to that rookie year.
Right.
And the reason I gave a C is I'm just not sure that he can ever touch that again. I think it's a great spot for him on an elite secondary, a team that is contending now. But the value they paid was for that rookie year, and I just don't think he'll get back to that.
Yeah, I agree with you, Connor. I do think it was an overpay by the Colts to get Sauce Gardner, who has declined a little bit throughout his career so far. But moving on to our next trade, the Saints dealt wide receiver Rashid Shaheed to the Seahawks in exchange for a 2026 4th and 5th round pick. What are your guys' thoughts on this trade?
Yeah, so I think that the Seahawks deserve to get like a solid B+ on this trade. If anything, an A- even an A-, because Rashid Shaheed is a very good deep ball threat. He's very fast. He's a young player. And just to add on top of what JSN has to offer for the Seahawks and, has been doing this year, in my opinion, JSN is the best receiver in the league this year. And, for Rashid Shaheed to come in to the Seahawks and just be another valuable asset for the Seahawks offense, for Sam Darnold, who's continuing to just do well every week, and, maybe outside of this last week. But he's coming in. It's another asset for Sam Darnold, and I truly believe this will help the Seahawks thrive even more and try to beat some of these dangerous contenders in the NFC and even the AFC as well. And for the Saints, I'll give them a solid C. I mean, they get a 4th and a 5th rounder, nothing crazy. I just think that Rashid Shaheed is a young player, still has he still can get better throughout the later parts of his career. And I just feel like, it's not really much to get in return. He's a young player, and they're just rebuilding right now. So I feel like that's why the only thing the picks do for them.
Yeah, I'm going to go on the Seahawks side first. I'll give them a B for this trade. Shaheed's only 27 years old. He's young, and they have one of the best offenses and one of the best passing games in the whole league right now. And Shaheed's just one of those guys that can take the top off of defense. He opens up the entire field. So I think it's a solid trade, and it's really high reward and low risk. You give up a 4th and a 5th round pick. I mean, he could easily return that value in an offense like Seattle's. And then for the Saints, I just gave him an F. I think it's terrible. I think he was the only bright spot on that offense, really, outside of Chris Olave, who health is always concerned for him. So I think it's just a flat-out terrible trade for the Saints, and I don't see them ever getting the value back. He was one of the only bright spots on that whole offense. And I would have rather seen them ship maybe Olave off, like I said, who has those health concerns, or Kamara, who's getting older, and his production has heavily dipped over the past few years.
Yeah, and I would just like to just quickly add on. I do agree. I mean, at this point, the Saints are looking at another bright, young franchise receiver at this point because, he, in my opinion, is one of the most talented guys outside of Chris Olave, who is injury prone, like you mentioned. So at this point, I'm looking at the next big prospects for the receiver position for the Saints.
Yeah, the Saints definitely do need to get younger. Trading away Shaheed does not help with that. I don't like the value they got back, and I think he can be a nice complementary piece to Jackson Smith-Njigba in Seattle. But next, we got the Raiders trading away Jacoby Myers to the Jaguars for a 4th and 6th round pick in 2026. What are your grades for the Jaguars and the Raiders?
I'll just start with the Jag side, and I'm going to give them a C. Similar to that Sauce trade, but for different reasons. I think that it's just kind of like a meh move. I don't really think he's heavily underrated, I will say, but I don't think he's one of those studs. I think it is way more impactful now for the Jaguars losing Travis Hunter, and now you're looking for Parker Washington to maybe step up a little. You have Brenton Strange still on the IR. So I think it's a solid piece. I'm just interested to see how they plan to incorporate him in this offense. And then for the Raiders, I gave them a C as well. I think it was great value. You gave the guy what he wanted. He's been on your team for so long. So you traded him to a spot where maybe you could call the Jaguars kind of contending for playoffs right now. They're kind of in the middle, a few injuries. But I think it was respectful for the Raiders to send him off to where he wanted to go. And they got decent value, a 4th and a 6th round. They're decent picks to have for someone like Jacoby Myers.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to agree on, Jacoby Myers. He got shipped off to Jacksonville. I do think they're a pretty good playoff contending team. I do think, though, that I would give the Jags like a good B+ on this because, as you mentioned and, alluded to, the Jags do have a lot of injuries. Obviously, I mean, they just ruled out Travis Hunter for the rest of the year. Brendan Strange on IR the past multiple weeks. So I just feel like this is good value for the Jags, and also Jacoby Myers gets to go on a playoff contending team. And for the Raiders, I'll just give them a C. I don't think they get too much return on it, but just some future picks.
Yeah, very good trade for the Jaguars as Travis Hunter is going to be out for a while, and he's a good replacement piece for him. But anyway, our 4th trade, the Dolphins traded outside linebacker Jalen Phillips to the Eagles in exchange for a 3rd round pick in 2026. What are your guys' grades for the Eagles and the Dolphins?
So I would starting off with the Eagles, I give them an A+. I mean, Jalen Phillips is a great linebacker, obviously plays specifically on the outside linebacker position. Came from the Dolphins. He was one of their best players down in Miami. Came to Philly, and literally in his first 2 games, he said how this is like the best thing that has ever happened to him. Like multiple times. Clearly, he's very happy and already thriving in Philly. Already got his first sack actually just this past week. So I do think this was an A+ for the Eagles. And for the Dolphins, I mean, a 3rd round pick, I don't think that's the same value in return that they give away for Jalen Phillips. I honestly think the Eagles kind of robbed the Dolphins, in my opinion. I think Jalen Phillips is a very, very good young player with a lot of time left in his career. I mean, 3rd round pick, they'll get someone, probably pretty decent, but compared to whoever that is to Jalen Phillips, I don't think it'll be the same value.
Well, I just want to say this was another Howie Roseman home run right here because every time you see one of these guys go to the Eagles, they start playing like studs. And Jalen Phillips has been a stud, but he's really stepped up to that elite talent that we wanted to see from him when he got drafted. So I'm going to give the Eagles an A for that one. I think he takes his defense to a whole other level, and we've been seeing that in the past 2 games with him. And then for Dolphins, I'm just going to give them an F. I think it's terrible. I think you could get way more for someone like Jalen Phillips than a 3rd round pick. And that's a trade to me that signals you're going into a rebuild. But the issue is you didn't trade anyone else. You just traded Phillips. You didn't trade Achane. You didn't trade Waddle. You didn't trade Tua. You still have Minka. You didn't trade anyone else. So that's not rebuild mode for me. So that's just terrible. A terrible move, a terrible value.
Yeah, another Howie Roseman masterclass, in my opinion.
Yeah, love him or hate him, you gotta respect Howie Roseman. Whenever there's the most minor of holes on the Eagles, he always goes out and fills it with minimal value like he did with Jalen Phillips here. But trade number 5, the last trade we will talk about. The Jets traded Quinnen Williams to the Cowboys for a second-round pick in 2026, a 2027 first, and offensive tackle Mozzie Smith. What are your guys' thoughts?
I'll give the Cowboys a D for this one. I'm not sure Quinnen Williams is playing at the level that the Cowboys are expecting to be. I think he's kind of declined as he's gotten older. And I think the value they gave up was just way too much. You give up Mozzie Smith, who maybe hasn't been the best, but he's still very young, in a second round and a first round pick. I don't think Quinnen Williams at 27 wouldn't ever return that value.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't give the Cowboys that low of a grade. If anything, I would give them like a solid B or B plus, just because, you know, Quinnen Williams, he's not that young anymore, but he's still like in, I would say, his earlier part to mid part of his career. I think it's a lot of time to just, you know, get better. And the Cowboys, you know, are looking to, you know, expand that defensive talent, especially up front, you know, giving away Micah Parsons that was a huge blow for them, in my opinion, a mistake, I think. But obviously, you know, they got Kenny Clark from that trade, now Quinnen Williams, so I think this was a pretty decent move. They did give up a lot, though. That's why my grade is a B and nothing higher.
Yeah, that was honestly a really good trade for the Cowboys, in my opinion. You aren't going to fix that defense with just one player, but anything helps at this point, as that is all the time we have tonight. As the state of every NFL team becomes clearer, each contending team hopes that their decision at the deadline will be enough to elevate them to a Super Bowl championship in February. For Connor Patterson and Gabriel Kovadlo, I'm Brady Welsh. Thank you for tuning into Penn State Sports Night, and have a great night, everybody.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning into this edition of Penn State Sports Night.
For more content like this, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, give us a like, and follow our socials down below.
And as always, we are
Penn State Sports Night.